On a regular basis, I am out and about and I see leash dogs and I see people wanting to pet them, kids or adults or whatever, and they go up and they hopefully ask if they can pet the dog and then hopefully listen to the answer, whether it's a yes or a no, especially if it's a no. And then they go, I'm going to put my hand out, like mentally, I'm going to put my hand out so that he can sniff it. Or a parent will even take the kid's hand and be like, put your hand out now so that he can sniff it. And I started thinking, why do we do this? And I thought maybe we should talk about it. My assumption has always been that we do this stick your hand out so we can smell it thing as a way to teach kids to avoid surprising a dog by just like walking up and petting it. But I deal with a lot of training clients that have an issue specifically with that. So the reaching out towards the dog and just blankly staring at them for a second with your hand in their face elicits a bad reaction from the dog, like growling or backing away or even biting if the person then tries to proceed. So, and I think this is like a classic lost in translation thing between dog behavior and human behavior, and I wanted to go over that. In our minds and our feelings and how our bodies function and stuff, there's a lot of evidence to support that dogs and people have a lot in common. But in the area of body language, especially for greeting, and dogs are just wonderfully, angelically patient in learning our body language. But in this area, it's pretty much opposite. So everything about dogs is super indirect as far as how they greet. They don't put their face in each other's face. They go past heads and faces generally, if there's a little sniff maybe, to each other's butts. They like butts, obviously, as you've seen, the butt chain of dogs greeting in a park where there's a bunch of butts. They don't make direct eye contact. They don't move straight at each other. Everything's like arcs and curves. And that's how dogs interact. Everything about people is frontal. So we like to align, at least Americans, we like to align at your front. We like to look you in the eye. We like to put our hands out at you. Everything's at you, and that's the opposite of dog language. So it's no surprise really that there's this like huge breakdown in communication here that causes problems. Because what you're essentially asking a person to do when they're doing that is to go over to a dog and align at its front and lean over it, which is just rude too, and stare at the dog awkwardly and put your hand in its face, which makes you more likely to then pat the dog on the head, which dogs are not crazy about too, which just try this out, like go up to random dogs and pat them on the head, and not random dogs, obviously ask, or dogs that you're familiar with. Pat them on the head and see if they're like, oh, I love this, or if they're like, ooh, weird. So just like reach out and try to touch them over the head cautiously. Most dogs will go, ew, not a fan of this. There's an occasional wonderful dog who like nudges your hand with its head, who's figured out this game and how to interact with people, but for most dogs it's weird. Another weird idea is that your dog needs like a hand to smell you, like this animal with an amazing sense of smell can't figure out to go over and smell you, or to smell you on its own, or just to smell you standing there unless you put your hand in their face for them to smell you. It's a little weird. The safest way to interact with dogs, or to teach your kid to interact with dogs, is to ask the dog if they want to say hi. So that doesn't happen very often, but we want to turn that around, which is instead you go up to the owner and you say, hi, can I pet your dog? Which is inherently sort of a selfish act. Just keep that in mind, that you want to touch the dog. And instead turn it around to, but let's see if Charlie wants to say hello to you, which is more like what you should be thinking. So if the dog is not interested in saying hello to you, if the dog shows no interest in you, then you're pushing it, and that's not cool, that's rude. So I just go up to dogs. I don't face them. I stand with my side to them or even my back to them and let them come up and sniff me, which they can totally figure out to do on their own if they want to. And if they don't, I don't push it. I sometimes talk to them, and sometimes I'll very quietly, slowly reach out a hand if the dog has shown interest in me under the dog's chin to pat their neck area, which I know seems counterintuitive from a fear of being bitten perspective. You want to put your hand over the dog's head because you think you're going to avoid their mouth somehow that way, but you're not. Dogs are lightning fast and could bite you literally 3 times, this has been proven, before you could pull your hand away, and are much more likely to do that if you're putting your hand over their head, and it's a little more awkward for them to move away from it. Is where if you reach under their chest, you'll see them either go, oh, this is cool, I like this, or like, oh, excuse you, weird, let me check you out a little more first, and that gives you a heads up. So I let the dog tell me if it's interested in coming over and sniffing me and saying hi. I don't push it, and that's what I would recommend. I have actually gotten so good at greeting dogs that I'm really bad at greeting people for the most part. So it takes everything in my power to turn towards people, face people, look them in the eye, and give them like a firm handshake. I'm so used to greeting dogs or greeting owners with dogs coming in for an evaluation that I'm just like, hey, so how's it going? How's your dog? Like, everything about that is rude to a person, but I'm just thinking of, I don't want to provoke anything from this dog. I want to get a read for if this dog is interested in me or not. So this is a challenge of being like bilingual in dog and person, but it's a really important skill to keep you safe and your kids safe, and also just if you're interested in working with dogs.